Ravi Lulla! Ravi Lulla! He is here to talk Creighton basketball.
Welcome into the video room. We're live on Stibbs TV, and there he is in all his glory. Ravi Lulla, live from the, I believe, the honeymoon suite there at whatever hotel he's staying at. I mean, it's a nice little pink. Yeah, he's got the pink shirt on, but he's got kind of the orangish pink hue hanging out in the background. So,
yeah, I believe it's salmon. I think it's a salmon color.
Oh, salmon. There you go. Yeah. Salmon. I'm not very good at my color descriptors, but if you want to turn the camera around and show us the heart-shaped bed and the heart-shaped hot tub, you know, with the complimentary cheap champagne.
There is no. Well, I upgraded to the fancy champagne because come on.
Nice.
No, if you do want to tour sometime, I'll give you. I got a little home gym set up in the basement. We got the office in the basement. It's a whole nice setup I got down here.
Well, Ravi, I mean, so much of the conversations lately about recruiting have talked about virtual visits. So maybe next week we do that. We do a virtual visit of the Lulla household, and we just kind of learn the ins and outs and what type of parties we can have there when this is all done.
When we're allowed to be near each other again.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine
where you clean and where you snatch and
cool.
Yeah, you can see the snatch, you can see the clean, you can see the jerk, all the explosive movements I enjoy.
Oh, did you? Speaking of snatching and cleaning and jerking, did you watch the Mountain do his power lift?
I did. Yeah, half through a Bjornsson. He had more left in the tank. I was a little disappointed he didn't go above that. The 501 kilograms, which is like 1,104 pounds. Was not a max effort lift. Like he had more in the tank. No.
So he's saving it so then he can break the world record again someday. You think that's what's going on?
I think so. I mean, from watching it, it looked like he probably had another 20 to 40 pounds in the tank. He probably could have. Yeah, that was not, especially in a. This is getting real nerdy, but they were using strongman rules rather than powerlifting rules. And in strongman rules, you're allowed to hitch, which means basically you can kind of jerk the weight up, if you will. But it's easier at that point in the lift. So you've got a little bit more left in the tank than strict powerlifting rules where it has to be a smooth lift. So I think he had probably 520 kilo.
Where, I mean, for a lift like that, what are the key muscles?
So that's going to
legs, obviously.
It's going to be a lot of, now again, nerdy, but he was doing a traditional stance, although a wider traditional stance deadlift, conventional deadlift, whereas people also do sumo deadlift where their legs are like super wide. For his, you're going to be a lot of hips, low back, and glutes, especially right off the floor. And then the lockout's going to be mostly hips and quads.
How do you do that very often?
I do deadlift. My best deadlift is 565 pounds, not kilos. Yeah. So about half of what he does.
Yeah. You're almost there.
I'm also about half of his weight. So
true.
Because
I looked at his diet on Saturday after he did that. Oh my gosh. I think it said he eats like 10,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
And the best descriptor was like, 12 eggs, bunch of spinach, and then it just said like lots of bacon. It didn't even have the proper amount. It was like 10 slices of bacon or 8. It was just like lots of bacon. I was like, oh man, that's my kind of guy.
Like Ron Swanson at the diner. He's like, I'm afraid you didn't hear what I said. I said, give me all the bacon.
I know what I'm about, son.
Christopher is saying the sun's not out, but the guns are. Yeah, Robbie's going with the short sleeve shirt today.
Oh yeah, it was creeping up on me a little bit. I didn't see
Let me pull that down, guys.
I forgot. Next week, when I do the virtual tool, I'll wear the tank top like I promised. I forgot about the tank top.
Yes,
we will get the guns.
Does it say Gold's Gym? I mean, they all have to say Gold's Gym, right?
No, I've got. I don't actually have a Gold's Gym one. I have a Powerhouse Gym tank. I have a Baywatch tank to look like Dwayne The Rock Johnson from the Baywatch movie.
Nice.
I actually have a Millennium Falcon tank top.
Oh,
Stib, that's right up Stibbs' alley.
And I have a one that has a picture of Jesus on it, and it says, "Hallowed be thy gains." and he's drinking a protein shake.
You got to wear that one.
Okay.
That's great, Robbie.
I'll wear hallowed be thy gains. My wife will appreciate that was your favorite. That was a Christmas gift one year.
That's awesome. Ravi Lulla joining us, our pregame show host for Bluejay Shootaround. This happened after we had you on last week, but the Jays did get a commit from a Lithuanian, and I believe it's Cancelaris or Cancelaris, Modestas Cancelaris, who's a 6'9" wing, and obviously has played a lot of ball overseas. Do you see him projecting into some minutes next year?
Oh no, not next year. I don't think so.
Do you want to think about it for a second?
Okay, so to be fair, most of the video out there of him is about a year old. It's either from late last year or like late in the 2018-2019 season or early in the 2019-2020 season. Like October, I think, is the most recent one I saw. So to be fair, he could be better than he was in the tape that I saw. Not to say he's bad, I just don't think he's ready. He kind of reminds me of a very young Martin Krompel type in terms of he was going to be a project when they got him. And if he's developed more than we've seen in the last 6 months, 8 months of him, maybe he could contribute a little bit. But honestly, part of it's also their depth in the front court, which is a funny thing to say. But if you've got Kalkbrenner coming in, probably getting some minutes. You've got Epperson, even if he can give you anything at all. You've got Christian Bishop. I mean, that's your 5. You've got 3 guys right there to split 40 minutes between. You imagine Bishop gets the lion's share of those, probably 25 a game. And then one of those guys has to learn the 4 if they want to get more minutes. Now, Cancelaris probably projects more as a true 4, but again, you're going to have Denzel Mahoney and Damian Jefferson holding down those spots. Antoine Jones, 6'6", he could probably play that spot. I just don't know how many minutes are going to be available. And between that and his kind of raw stage of development, listen, he might get on the floor, but I don't see him being – I would be more surprised if he didn't redshirt than if he was a role player.
Ravi, I wanted to just talk about sports in general because it seems like we're getting very close to baseball announcing something, perhaps a date on when it's going to try to return. And the NBA, they're set to have a call with their players tomorrow, according to Ramona Shelburne and other sources at ESPN. Are you surprised that we haven't really learned exactly what the NBA's plans are? Because while it seems like baseball is really ramping up with larger rosters than the NBA has been very quiet, I think, for the most part. And I almost thought that they might be one of the first sports to make an announcement. What have you made of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little surprising, but when I think about the logistics of what the NBA has to go through, it makes more sense to me because you're looking at a league where if they don't get to 70 games, they have to give some of their local TV money back. So they're really trying to get to 70 games. Besides that, they want a few games before the playoffs so that they can not be just throwing guys in there just cold off the streets into the playoffs. And so I get that part of it. Plus you're looking at with baseball, if you wanted to do the spring training scenario where you allowed them to just play within their spring training facilities in Arizona and Florida, that kind of keeps travel to a minimum as well. Basketball doesn't necessarily have that exact same type of setup anywhere in the country. Now, I know people have tossed out Las Vegas and, Los Angeles has a lot of arenas, obviously. Somebody tossed out the Disney Sports Complex, which I think probably makes the most sense because you don't have to shut down an entire city to make that work. But I think there's a lot more logistical issues in trying to figure out, okay, what kind of season are we going to have? What kind of playoffs are we going to have? And then where are we going to play it? Where baseball can kind of just start playing games and figure it out as they go along, which I think makes their restart process a little easier. Plus, I always thought baseball would be the first to come back since it's so spread out and it's outside, that the risk of infection seems to be a lot lower, especially if you don't let fans back in. To me, it makes sense that baseball's first because it's the lowest risk and lowest number of variables to figure out.
I realize everyone, and we're talking with Ravi Lulla, our colleague on 1620 The Zone and host of Bluejay Shootaround, our pregame show here on 1620 The Zone. I know that everyone's thinking about the fall and they're thinking about football and to a lesser degree volleyball. But are you surprised that we haven't heard anything more from the college basketball side of things? If there's concern about that sport starting on time, especially if you are going to have a situation where you might have more overlap between the football and basketball than we've ever had before.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of the universities are hoping they can start football on time. I mean, if you're starting, what is it, May, first week of May, if you're starting all the professional sports by, I don't know, June 1st, middle of June, that's still almost 3 full months before you're going to start college football. So to me, it might be without fans. It might be, you might have some of these contingency plans, but I think you haven't heard much because I think a lot of the people in universities and the NCAA expect college football to start more or less on time. And so, yeah, you're going to have more overlap and that type of thing. But I think that's why you haven't heard as much about it, because I don't know that they're expecting a huge change. Maybe they push things back a couple weeks to accommodate. But if we're starting to open up and start playing games and stuff again early May, I don't know why, if you're a university president or an NCAA, member, why you would expect that your September sports start would be affected.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I've been thinking a lot about college basketball, kind of like John, in the way of like, it seems like it's getting short shrift right now because we're so focused on, first of all, football, especially around here. And then the next focuses are on the sports returning. And yet, I mean, we're still 2 months removed essentially from losing one of the top, 4 or 5 sporting events. For a lot of people, the number one sporting event of the entire year, and that's March Madness. And so it is kind of interesting that it has been maybe lost to the conversation, even though we just lost one of the most important things we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because it's the furthest away in terms of starting. I think the canceling of it was so final and they squashed any hopes of like, we're not doing we're not doing a smaller tournament. We're not doing any of that. Like, this season is over. And they were very final about that. And so from that point at, middle of March, you're 7-8 months away from starting the season again. Mm-hmm. So I think to me, that's the reason that it hasn't been focused on as much, because there's zero chance of it returning. And then we're talking, 3/4 of a year before it comes back. So I think there's just been a lot of other things that are going to happen between now and then. And if we start to see those things happen, then college basketball may not be affected at all, at least for next season. Whereas there's so many of these other things that even football, which again, if we're starting to play sports again by June or July, I don't expect football to be affected. You're looking at all these other things that could still be immediately affected for their next season. Whereas that doesn't at this point seem to be the case for college basketball.
And we pointed this out, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago, it may have been 2 days ago, that Kansas announced that the season ticket package for their lowest price season tickets has been cut in half from last year. It was about $990 last year. It's $500 this year. And I realize, we've got to get to the fall first and find out what happens with the fall sports. But that seemed to be a pretty telling sign of a lot of different things that, you got a program in KU that doesn't usually have a problem filling that arena, that field house, cutting their season ticket prices in half for the cheapest ones. So, again, I invite Creighton fans who are expecting to go to that game at Allen Fieldhouse to become Kansas season ticket holders, because it's going to cost you half the price now.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that makes more sense, because while I do think most of these sports are either going to return by that point or have started by that point, I don't know if it'll be with fans in the arena. And so I think that's where a lot of people's hesitation is about whether or not, like, okay, if I buy these, am I going to be allowed to go? Mm-hmm. And so that part of it, the tickets make sense to me, because I think there is still a lot of uncertainty around that. But I mean, yeah, if you're willing to, if you're willing to roll the dice there and be like, hey, $500, that's a pretty good deal. Mm-hmm. Let's try and get some Kansas season tickets. I mean, it's smart on the university's part, because they probably recognize, hey, it's better to get some money in the door than just have people wait it out, because they count on a certain number of revenue from those things in order for their budget or whatever. I think Kansas is probably doing okay from all the basketball money, but you never know. They still gotta make their budget. So I understand it from their standpoint, and the fan standpoint is, to me, the biggest variable that's left in terms of when people will actually get to be in stadiums watching games.
And real quick, Rob, before we let you go, the Oregon governor, Kate Brown, she just said that large gatherings such as sporting events through the end of September should be either canceled or modified. And then Brett McMurphy pointed out that Oregon hosts North Dakota State, Ohio State, and Hawaii. Oregon State hosts Colorado State, Portland State, and Washington State. And you know, we don't really talk a whole lot about like truly what a loss of an atmosphere could mean beyond just like, that sucks, fans can't go to games. But I mean, Oregon is a brutal atmosphere. And now the Ohio State game, like there's something like, oh my God. I mean, you still have to deal with the travel and sleeping in, you know, a hotel bed versus your own. But I mean, talk about just I mean, the point spread. That's like, what is this going to do to point spreads? We haven't even discussed that, John.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be the one to ask. I saw you were betting on Korean professional baseball the other day, so you might be the expert in that area.
I'm not the Korean professional baseball so far.
And virtual horse racing.
Oh,
I was up 2 units on that though.
No, I mean, it's going to make a huge difference. I mean, going to outs and getting basically a free pass there for if you're Ohio State, like that's going to be huge. And then if somebody goes and loses to Oregon later in the year, are you going to take that into consideration if Oregon loses to Ohio State early? And you look at it like if you're the playoff committee and you're like, yeah, but they didn't have anybody in the stadium, and it was they lost on a game-winning field goal. You're like, that probably swings the other way if there's 70,000 Duck fans in the stadium. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ripple effects, but at the same time, I'm kind of the mind that, hey, if we can start things and not have fans, like let's just get going,
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Ravi Lulla from Bluejay Shootaround. All right, so next week we'll look forward to the virtual tour of the Lulla gym.
And the tank top, yeah.
And the tank
top out for you.
Got to see the tank top. All right, Ravi, take care, my friend.
See you guys.
Ravi Lulla joining us here on Stibbs TV and, of course, also on 1620 The Zone. Speaking of Kansas, they have received a notification from the NCAA, just as Louisville did earlier this week. What did it say? We can have that for you. Plus, Brett McMurphy's story.
Yeah.
It seems as if some college administrators who were saying one thing a month ago are either they're pulling a Darth Vader and they're changing the deal. I'm altering the deal.
Force choke, Stibbs.
Or force choking people. I don't know.
Look, I'm force choking you, Stibbs.
Yeah, let's not ever say that again.
So he is a force choke cult. That's what.
No, oh come on! I'm quoting lines. So Darth Vader never said that.
Is.
I am force choking you,
Stibbs.
You know this is live on the stream, right? The people on YouTube can watch.
Yep, they can take the screenshots and everything.
Yeah, go ahead, take the screenshot. Go ahead, just do your.
Cool.
That is like the least intimidating.
Yeah.
We'll be back after this on 1620 The Zone.
Bye, YouTube. See you later.